I grew up near Niagara Falls, and I've done the majority of attractions over the years, so you don't have to. Niagara Falls has a lot of extra attractions that aren't necessarily connected with experiencing the falls. Rather, they're attractions that just keep you in town and keep you spending money. But there are some that are really good and provide that waterfall experience that you're probably looking for. And so I've ranked these attractions with that in mind. We'll start with the ones that you should just skip and work our way up to the best. I actually have videos on a lot of the places that I'm going to mention, so I'll put links to them below in the description. Let's just start with the most obvious, Clifton Hill. I would recommend staying clear of this place until you've done all the other attractions that you've wanted to do. I say that because Niagara Falls is actually pretty spread out, and it can take a lot longer to get from one attraction to the other. For example, it's a 14-minute drive from the Floral Show House to the Niagara Glen Nature Center, or a 25-minute walk from the power station and tunnel to the Hornblower boat ride. When you add up all this travel time between attractions, it can really cut down the amount of time you have to fit everything in. Speaking of which, here's a tip to save you some time. Just skip the Floral Show House. Honestly, it's kind of a waste of time. It's really nice, it's beautiful, it's peaceful, the flowers are beautiful, but it's just a small greenhouse. Just go to the greenhouse in your own town. You don't need to come to Niagara Falls to go through a small greenhouse. And there's nothing here that is unique to Canada, to Ontario, or to Niagara Falls. Plus, it's at the very south end, and you'd have to kind of go out of your way to visit it, so I would just skip it altogether. Save your time, save your money, and save your feet. If you get the Niagara Falls Pass, Niagara's Fury is included with the package, but don't waste your time on this. The story and theater are very dated, and the whole thing honestly kind of feels pointless. I went into this thinking that I was going to get like a 4D IMAX type of experience, but that's not what you get at all. And you'll be scratching your head at the end wondering like, what did I just do? Next on the list is the Floral Clock. This is just a clock with flowers on it. Don't go. The Laura Secord Homestead is located on the Niagara Parkway between Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's an interesting and important piece of Canadian history, but the tour is just not worth the time or money. You basically get to see 4 rooms in an old house, and not like an old, beautiful, historic Victorian estate or anything like that. It's just an old house. The information they provide is interesting, the tour guides are great, and if you like history, you might enjoy learning about Laura Secord, but I don't know if the tour and property are good enough to recommend. They do have ice cream though, so you could pull off and grab some ice cream on your drive between Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake. If you want to do something similar to this while you're in the Toronto/Niagara area, I would recommend going to Dundurn Castle in Hamilton or going to Castle Loma in Toronto. Skylon Tower is pretty dated, but it does give you some nice views of the falls and surrounding areas. But if you're there to experience Niagara Falls and feel the mist and feel the rumble of the water, Skylon Tower is kind of counterintuitive to those experiences because you're actually pretty far away from the falls. I'd recommend saving your money and going up the CN Tower in Toronto if you're headed that way. I'm not into gambling, so Fallsview Casino is a no for me. I don't see the appeal of this place at all. For people wanting to experience the falls and Niagara Gorge, this just doesn't offer anything other than gambling, a food court, restaurants, and some shopping. I'd say this is just another tourist trap thing. If you want to shop, there's a big outlet mall about 10 minutes away, or save your shopping for Queen Street in Toronto. And let's not even go into the hotel room costs and the gouging that happens there. I think right now those hotels on like Fallsview Boulevard overlooking the falls, they charge something like $80 per night to park your car, so it's very costly, but that's not what this video is about. Dufferin Islands is a beautiful park made up of footbridges and small islands. On the way to the islands, you'll pass an old power station and a barge that got swept down river back in 1918. You can even take a path through the trees that reaches the bank of the Niagara River. Keep in mind you're above the falls, and I would not recommend going in there because the currents are quite strong. This is actually a really nice area away from the crowds, but I'm not sure I could recommend this if you're only in town for a couple of days. There are some truly stunning natural locations in Niagara Falls, which I would recommend you check out instead. I'll get to those a little later in the video. Queenston Park is rich with history and natural beauty. It's actually where the Bruce Trail starts, which is the longest footpath in Canada. It ends in Tobermory, which is on the tip of the Bruce Peninsula. The park was the location of a major battle during the War of 1812, and there's a nice memorial honoring those who fought. Plus, there's a huge monument to General Brock, which is cool to see. If you're into history, this might be worth a stop, but otherwise, I'm not sure I would recommend stopping here. It is, after all, just a park, and I'm sure you've been to a park before. It does have a nice playground, though, for kids, so if you do need some time to just get out, stretch your legs, let the kids run around, this could be a nice spot. The Welland Canal connects Lake Erie to Lake Ontario and provides a route around Niagara Falls for ships. Thanks to the Welland Canal, ships have access to the Atlantic Ocean and the Midwestern United States. Around the midway point, there is a great museum museum and viewing platform where you can watch the ships travel through the locks. Although it's interesting and an amazing engineering feat, and I actually really enjoyed it. I traveled along the whole Welland Canal, and it is cool. If you have time, I would do it. But I'm not sure I would go out of my way to leave Niagara Falls and go and do it. I think maybe this would be a great stop as you're coming into town or leaving town and going back to Toronto. The Incline Railway is a very convenient way to get from the Horseshoe Falls up to the big hotels on Fallsview Boulevard. And tickets to the railway are included with your Niagara Falls pass, so definitely take advantage. It can save you time and save your feet because the only other way that I know of to get to Fallsview Boulevard from the falls is via Murray Street, which is a bit of a walk from the Horseshoe Falls, and then it's uphill along Murray Street to get up to Fallsview Boulevard. So it can be a bit of a hike for people, especially if you've been walking all day. So take advantage of the Incline Railway. And as a bonus, the Incline Railway has some really great views from the rail car itself, but then also once you get off, there's some viewing platforms up there and they provide some great views. At the bottom of the Incline Railway is the Table Rock Center. This is the main tourist info area with food, restaurants, restrooms, shops, and it's where you can buy your Niagara Falls pass. The entrance to Journey Behind the Falls is located inside here as well. This isn't really an attraction, but you'll likely need to stop here at some point, especially if you plan to do Journey Behind the Falls. The Butterfly Conservatory doesn't have anything to do with Niagara Falls, but I will confess this was actually kind of cool. I've never seen or been to something like this before, so it was better than I expected. If you're traveling with kids, I think they'll enjoy this too. But again, it has nothing to do with anything. It's just a greenhouse full of butterflies, so I'll let you decide for yourself if it's worth adding to the itinerary, but I genuinely had a good time there. We thought it was pretty cool. The Royal Botanical Gardens are right next to the Butterfly Conservatory. The gardens are beautiful and it's a nice experience walking through it. But you know, it's not really any different than any other botanical gardens. There's nothing I can point to that makes it unique to Niagara Falls. In all honesty, I think I've been to better botanical gardens. It is beautiful. They take care of it and it's immaculate. But there are other gardens even in the Niagara region that you could enjoy and not have to stop at the botanical gardens. Niagara-on-the-Lake, for instance, has amazing gardens throughout the whole town. The boulevards and parks are full of flowers. And while you're in Southern Ontario during the summer, you'll likely see lots of other beautiful gardens on your travels. So I wouldn't recommend stopping here unless you have time to kill or you just really love gardens and you want to take some time to explore the gardens. There's also a counter service restaurant here, and I would imagine that it doesn't ever get too busy, so this could be a place to stop to grab a bite to eat. It's a beautiful location within the botanical gardens, and it looked promising as we ordered, but the sandwiches and the kids' food that we got was mediocre. It's fine for grabbing a quick bite and a cold drink, but don't expect too much here. The Tiny Church and Country Market are located along the Niagara Parkway between Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake. This is actually a pretty fun stop. The Tiny Church is obviously a novelty, but it's fun to go inside, and it's all free parking too. But the reason to stop is the apple pie and the apple crisp at the market. It's delicious. The market also sells fresh produce. The setting is nice too, with the Niagara Parkway out front and beautiful vineyards as a backdrop. You could grab a seat on the covered porch and enjoy a nice pastry, ice cream, and it's a nice change of pace from Niagara Falls. Whitewater Walk takes you 230 feet down and through a long tunnel to the bottom of the Niagara Gorge. As you approach the end of the tunnel, you can actually start to feel and hear the massive Class 6 rapids in front of you. These are some of the most powerful rapids in the world, and they are pretty impressive to see in person. The video definitely doesn't do it justice, and I think this experience is worth a visit. I wouldn't go as far as to say that this is a must-do, but definitely deserves a spot near the top of your list. The Niagara Glen Nature Center was a big surprise for me. I did this recently for the first time, and I was actually very impressed. This is another Niagara Gorge and river experience like the Whitewater Walk, except here you can experience the area in probably the most natural setting in Niagara Falls. If you could only pick one, Whitewater Walk or Niagara Glen, you'd have to decide if you would prefer the big rapids and an easy stroll on a boardwalk, or have more of a non-tourist experience with calmer waters and a rugged hiking trail. Personally, I would pick Niagara Glen all day. I've always thought about what Niagara Falls could have been like if it was developed as a national park instead of a tourist trap, and this is probably the best experience for that. I've done a lot of hiking and outdoor experiences in Ontario, from the Bruce Peninsula to Algonquin Park, and this is honestly one of the coolest hikes I've done. And the reason for that is because it's so unique. You just don't find this kind of gorge and river anywhere else in Ontario that I'm aware of. For sure, it's one of a kind. I hiked the Whirlpool Trail, but I screwed up and I only paid for 2 hours of parking. I should have given myself more time because I stopped constantly to film. I didn't even make it to the end of the trail and I had to turn back early. So don't make that same mistake. Give yourself plenty of time to do the hike because you'll want to stop often to enjoy the views. Keep in mind that the trail gets very rugged and can be challenging at times, so don't go unprepared. Good shoes and water are a must. Niagara Falls and Niagara-on-the-Lake are like total opposites, and that's a very good thing. I would actually recommend that you stay here and not in Niagara Falls. You should stay here, eat here, and just drive into Niagara Falls for the day. Niagara-on-the-Lake is located at the mouth of the Niagara River, where it meets Lake Ontario. Known for its historical significance, its well-preserved 19th century architecture, beautiful turn-of-the-century hotels and inns, as well as its wineries, gardens, restaurants, and attractions, this town has earned its reputation as one of Canada's prettiest towns. The town dates back to the 18th century and was the original capital of Upper Canada. And Niagara-on-the-Lake still feels like a British outpost. The architectural heritage of the town is endlessly fascinating. With Georgian, Victorian, and Edwardian styles, walking through the streets feels like strolling through a living museum. Queen Street is the main thoroughfare in town where you'll find beautiful shops, perfectly manicured gardens, and the World War I memorial built in the 1920s to honor the town's residents who died during battle. Niagara-on-the-Lake is a must-do. The Whirlpool Aero Car is over 100 years old and takes you half a kilometer across the Niagara Gorge over the whirlpool and rapids below. For me, this is a must-do. It's really fun, a little thrilling depending on your tolerance for heights and dangling from wire cables, but the views and experience are very unique and hard to match anywhere else. It's a very different perspective on the whole river gorge, and I thought it was just a lot of fun. Even before you board the cable car, the views are amazing, but they get even better once you're out over the water. The tour guides are great, they provide lots of info as you make your way across, but honestly, I don't think many people are listening to them because everyone is just looking at the amazing views and the swirling whirlpool directly below. Make sure you do this one on your trip. This one requires a passport, so plan ahead, but you can actually walk across the Rainbow Bridge to the US side of the falls, or just walk out onto the bridge for some of the best views of all three waterfalls. This one is pretty basic, but the views are amazing. But if you do go all the way across to the US side, the American Falls are only about a 5 to 10 minute walk away. I'd say this is a must-do just because of the views. Plus, you know, you're getting gouged at every turn in Niagara Falls, so at least this one is almost free. It's about a $5 fee to walk across. I've done the jet boats before and I loved it. I don't have any footage from when I rode it personally, but I would say that this is a must-do. You really get an appreciation for just how big and powerful the rapids are in the river. Plus, the jet boats are insanely powerful, so this is just thrilling and fun. We rode in one of the open-air jet boats and you definitely get wet, but if you're visiting Niagara Falls to experience the power of all that water, then the jet boats is a great first-hand experience. I think the Hornblower / Maid of the Mist is a no-brainer. It's for sure a must and will get you as close as you'll ever get to the falls. You'll get absolutely soaked, so make sure you pick a warm day and bring a pair of sandals. Journey Behind the Falls is another classic attraction. I'd say this is a must-do as well and gets you almost as close to the falls as the Hornblower boat ride. I think some people think that you can see out from behind the falls, but you definitely can't. You basically get a view of the backside of water. The highlight is stepping out onto the viewing platform and feeling the mist coming off the falls. The falls feel huge and powerful from this perspective, and I think this is one of the best experiences of Niagara Falls. It's one thing to stand at the railing on the Niagara Parkway and look out at the falls, but it's a completely different experience to go down to the bottom. The Niagara Parks Power Station and Tunnel is one of the newest, or maybe the newest attraction at Niagara Falls. For your money, time, and experience, I'd say this is one of the best things to do at Niagara Falls. The overall experience feels like a cut above the rest. I think they did a great job presenting this restored piece of history, and they did it without silly gimmicks or dumb 360 videos that mean nothing. Although I think they do have some light show at night, but I haven't experienced that, so I don't know, maybe that's a little gimmicky. But it feels like a genuine effort to present a really cool piece of industrial history. The power station alone is super interesting, and the old machinery and architecture is awesome to explore. But it gets even better when you board the elevator and head down to the tunnel. When the doors open and you see this massive cavernous tunnel and you feel the cold, damp air, it's a wow moment for sure. It was a wow moment for me anyway. When you get to the end of the tunnel and walk out to the viewing platform, you get a great view of all the waterfalls, and you stay a little drier than Journey Behind the Falls. This is a must-do and for sure one of my favorite things to do in Niagara Falls. Anyway, that's my list. Hope you found it helpful. See you next time.